So 3:15, 15:15, getting back at it. Eric Attacker is going to present the in-briefing portion of today's presentations, and I'll let you introduce yourself and go from there. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm Eric Attacker. I am a district ranger on the Wenatchee River Ranger District on the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest. I've been doing AA stuff since about 2020 with starting out with the BLM Spokane district. And so it was fun to, when Curtis kicked this to me to fill in for this presentation with Lonnie, and we'll try to stick to the schedule, hopefully give you guys some time back. Try to save the last 10 minutes or so for you to break out, since I know that's some of the most valuable time. And it looks like my presentation is working, is it? Can you see the main?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
It's
good.
working.
And Lonnie, do you want to introduce?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I think you know me, Lonnie Newton. I'm the Fire Management Officer for Spokane District BLM. And yeah, Erica and I have worked together in the past. We've in-briefed teams, and I'll be helping her out a bit.
So yeah, like I said, we'll try to be brief, brilliant, and gone so you can talk more about the content. It's sort of a continuation of the extended attack session yesterday. Some of the same kinds of considerations that you'll want to be thinking about. So your mission at an in-brief is to really briefly highlight the important information and sort of relationships that are going to help your IMT hit the ground running to the extent they can. It's really valuable, you've talked a lot about preseason and having some of those materials in hand so that when you actually have a big incident, you can just kind of pull from those and feel prepared. And like everything else with this class, it's a lot of information, but if you have that stuff in pocket kind of before the season starts, you feel a lot more ready. You don't have to reinvent anything. It's all been done. So you have a lot of resources to reach to, and you don't have to go it alone.
Yep. I know for our agency, we have our in-brief package, a template all set up preseason. And with that are all of our associated plans, our radio frequency guides, our unit aviation plans, all that is ready to go so that in the event when we order a team, if it's a type 3 team and we're going to have an evening in brief, we can get that stuff together relatively fast.
So again, this is kind of your first chance to really hit home with some of the big picture parts of the incident. You really want to have, succinct but detailed descriptions of the background on the fire, your kind of main values at risk and the context you might be working in, political, environmental, all of those things. Have all your key contacts sort of assembled, and it's your chance to really establish your leader's intent for the agency or multiple agencies if you're in that kind of situation.
Yep, and there is a template also in the Red Book. Few people use that, but it is super valuable to pull out pieces of that and build your own in-brief template.
I'll kind of breeze through a couple of these because there's a little bit repeating information, but so you've got, some factors to consider. As soon as you order an IMT, you want to be working on that in-brief package and figuring out where you're going to have it. Is it going to have a virtual option? Try to nail down when it's going to be. You may not know exact because you'll have a team potentially hasn't been assigned yet, and you'll have to sort some of that out with the IC. And who needs to be invited? Another part of this, I guess I thought about was like, who's in charge of the meeting? And that should be obvious, depending on the lead agency. where the fire started is usually who the lead agency is, but some of you, I'm sure, are working in the context of fire district jurisdiction as well as federal agencies. And so there can be a little bit of gray area sometimes, like if it started on private, but you're ordering a team, a lot of times there's a sort of an expectation or a need to have one of the bigger agencies sort of handle the in brief because it's we're practiced at it. We have the capacity to do it. Just thinking back to one of my first incidents, and that was when I was with BLM in 2020, was during the Labor Day fires, and we had, you know, a lot of fast moving fire coming onto multiple jurisdictions, and it was a good learning experience of what not to do for an in brief. I learned a lot, definitely.
Yep, that was pretty crazy year. I remember specifically we had the Pearl Hill incident that crossed the Columbia River and was heading south at a significant rate of spread. And I remember calling Erica and I said, "Yeah, well, it's crossed Highway 2." And she was like, "Highway 2? What?"
That was the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have got, I don't know. That was, yeah. And that was lots of fire, you know, fire districts. And we had a team, and then they were also going to be managing a fire that was on Forest Service across the river. So it was one of those learning experiences for sure. And Curtis was strategically out of town. He was my mentor at the time. So
I think that last little note, we've definitely hammered this in, but you know, try to get them a WFDS, whatever you can, and you know, it's really important so that the incident commander and their command and general staff can at least see your strategic objectives and management requirements.
sounds like my mic was working. Is this better?
Yeah, that's working.
It keeps defaulting to something. I will also say I have gremlins in my camera, so they it just goes off and on. I don't have any control over it. So anyway, okay, let's move on. If it lets me. Okay. So you get an opportunity pretty quickly once you have a team assigned. They will reach out. They'll be reaching out to the fire, you know, the FMO or duty officer, probably the current IC. You'll get a chance as an AA to chat with them, verify they're going to make it for the in briefing time that you've kind of sorted out. And you can adjust that if you absolutely need to. And you're going to get, you know, again, if they haven't already established or kind of gotten that information, give them the contact info for their key contacts for the command and general staff functions. That's the time where you might highlight any areas you really think you're going to need extra effort, or, you know, based on their complexity, which you've gone through. That'll kind of give you an idea of where your functions are that have the most need, like whether you're dealing with a huge public affairs show, have a lot of aviation. I mean, there's going to be every incident's a little bit different. And then you talk about your transfer of command timeline. That conversation sometimes lasts for a couple of days until you can get that nailed down, but you should try to sort that out up front.
Yeah, remember for multi-jurisdictional fires where you're in unified command, you're going to have duplicate contacts for each of those jurisdictions that you're going to want to share with your incoming team. So you may have a unit aviation manager for the BLM and one also for the Forest Service. Some other key ones that we've had a lot of success in incorporating in briefs is also the dispatch center manager, expanded dispatch representative, which is on there, your incident business advisor, that's a really good one, and public affairs for each of the agencies, maybe even law enforcement.
Yeah, so no pressure. The cost of the team is of course a consideration, but at this point, you went through the hoops to make that decision and make that order. You went through the complexity and you've had good conversations up and down, and sideways in your organization about the need. And so really you just want to try to prepare yourself. It's it's a it's a machine that's coming in and they've got a lot of bells and whistles, and you should try to be prepared, and kind of, it's not a formal event, but just, be try to get your details hammered out before they show up. So yeah, that in brief should be fairly short and sweet, but get the point home. Here's the Appendix D Lonnie pointed out. That's from the Red Book. I would say you should probably use what your unit model is and not that list. It's quite exhaustive. A lot of those topics you're going to want to reserve for breakout groups. So the functions will break out after the in brief. So you kind of want that high level on a lot of these topics. You're putting your agenda together, ideally, like, getting time with the folks on the agenda to make sure they know that they're not going to need to spend a ton of time digging into the weeds, but really just introducing themselves and giving that overview. What else about that, Lonnie?
Yeah, it's really your opportunity to provide your leader's intent for the incident. So, keep it brief. My opinion is if you can schedule something to shoot for right about that 20-minute time frame, that's a really effective way. And recognize that in the breakouts, there's going to be representatives from the agencies talking with the command and general staff of that incident command team, and they'll get into the specifics more.
Yeah, like Lonnie said, 20 minutes or less. Over 30 minutes. It's one of these, if you're in an ineffective in briefing when you're in it, and yeah, you kind of aspire to hit that 20-minute mark. The real engagement is really in that breakout time.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different in briefs over the years. I vividly remember one of the longest ones that I participated in was with the Park Service, and they had it was good, but it was lengthy, and that was on one end of the spectrum. And I've seen others where people are tired, they're beat. It's been a real challenge for them to get prepared, and they're very brief and potentially not even communicating all the necessary information that we needed.
Right. And to some degree, it's sort of like scaled to what phase you're in. If this is going between extended attack and a team, that's going to be probably more information heavy than a team to team transition where there's been a lot more dialogue potentially between the teams before you even get to the in brief. From a continuity standpoint, but when you're kind of moving from type 3 to 2, there's kind of a lot of chaos, and that's why you've invited the team. There could be that need to get a little more in the weeds, but again, there is time in the breakouts for some of that detail.
Yeah, as you're preparing for your in brief too, remember not to neglect initial attack responsibilities, and chat about that with your neighbors, your other jurisdictions that are associated with your incident. Make sure you have a good plan so that you can share that with the incoming team.
And yeah, here it says, not all AAs, not all agencies have to present, but having, giving time if they want it, but also a pre-meet is always helpful if you can get a short time to sort of tweak the agenda. You know, give folks a heads up of what they should focus on if they haven't done it before. You know, sometimes it's just new and people don't know how deeply to go. And if people don't want to present, that's fine. Just giving introduction, making a face to name connection is important. And the IC can also, maybe if you have a chance to chat with the IC, if they want to really hear more about one thing or another, you can get that idea from them. And here's an example. There's a couple here of in brief agendas. So it is really helpful. We're going to probably say it a few times to have that WFDS ready, and it may be something you want to put up on a screen. It's not essential, but having maps or something to show sort of here's our focus areas, our values at risk. Here's some of the resource considerations if you have those going on. You know, the ops will give their sort of situation briefing. Any of that information can come out in brief, but also, again, not going too deeply in the weeds.
Yeah, one thing we haven't discussed, but reminder on your resource advisors too. They're a contender to be invited to the in-brief, and that can be a really important way to not only share that contact, but also your resource advisor may have some input, some management requirements that they would like to illustrate.
I think this one was on another slide, so I'm gonna go. We're almost done with presentation. So, yeah, this last one, we can drop the link in the chat. I think you should have access to the presentation, but we weren't gonna try to watch a video during the presentation. Please check that out. It's sort of a montage of a lot of examples, and you know, like we kind of said, there's not a single right way, but you kind of know when it's not going the right way in the in brief. So check out the examples if you're not kind of clear on what that's about. And the last slide. So we're doing really well on time. So you can go to your groups and, you know, thinking about this scenario, and there's more to the scenario, we'll come back and kind of do the end of the day scenario. But from the in-brief perspective, you want to answer the questions, where and when will you in-brief the team? Who will you invite? And create an agenda. And we'll try to come back. What do you think? How many minutes?
Let's do 7 minutes. So come back at 3:40 and okay. And we'll discuss.
I'll stick the questions in the chat, or maybe someone can help me with that. Let's see.
Pick a number.
Had caffeine.
How about group 10?
I'll go for group 10. Thanks for picking 10, Lonnie. Hey, yeah, we talked about, you know, nothing really a super specific location, but we agreed probably in town would be the best option, and then having you know, a facility that was large enough to house as many team members as showed up. And John mentioned, you know, nowadays it seems like the numbers are a little smaller than what used to be. So probably having that conversation with the IC on how many team members they're expecting to show up, so we know that we have enough room for them and whoever else we invite, and then making sure that there's good like internet hookups and facilities and whatnot to share the information virtually also. So that was the extent of our conversation on that question.
Oh, that's great, George. Yeah. You know, I think the only thing I'd add into that is a safety consideration also. There has, of course, been instances where ICPs have been burned over, threatened by fire. You know, especially if you're considering kind of a metropolitan area, you know, just driving safety, all that kind of stuff. So considerations when you designate that location. That's good. How about another perspective from say group 2, please? Anything different?
No. What was the question we were answering?
Where and when will you, or where are you going to have the ICP, and what considerations are you considering in choosing that location?
So always easiest if you have available federal space, because then you don't need a land use agreement. But if it's going to be somewhere else, then you'll have to have a land use agreement. You know, and when you want to give people enough time to get there, but not too late in the evening.
That's excellent, Bruce. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. The land use agreement, that's super important. Need to be working on that pretty much right when you order the team. Great. Let's see. So who will you invite to this in brief? Let's go group 4. Who'd you guys talk about that you're going to invite?
Yeah, I'd go for that. This is Jesse, group 4. You know, the go-to is just all relevant players, but you know, besides Forest Soup, staff, FMOs, AAs, including dispatch, IBAs, INBAs, cooperating partners, you know, tribal partners, you know, just people who have a vested interest and you know, trying to get our reeds, reefs, and you know, those people that can really just paint the picture. And yeah, those are some bullet points that we hit on.
No, that's great, Jesse. Yeah. How about we'll just do one more group, say group 8. Is there anything else, any other entity that you're going to invite that hasn't been mentioned?
One that I just thought of, and sometimes they're already there because of their day job, but the region or the forest duty officer, whoever's, I think that's been pretty helpful, especially as that new IMT's coming in. Probably don't have all the resources they need. Maybe we can search some things locally to them, and at least have a point of contact of where they can get, you know, connected to the IA resources or the things that are around.
You bet. No, that's a good one, Miles.
It can be helpful to have that person sometimes also be the MC and help kind of keep the meeting moving, or have a, you know, we lean a lot on our public affairs shop to help facilitate the meeting, just to, you know, not necessarily keep it within a short amount of time, but just, yeah, really to run it, you know. Right, about an in brief agenda. I know you've seen a couple examples. Group 6, I'm calling you, my group.
All right, I got this. So introduce each other, introduce AAs and locals to the incoming IMT. Talk about the fire, the status of the fire, maybe how it started, a little bit of history there. And then maybe talk about values at risk and kind of the political climate in the community. I think that's about it.
That's good, Holly. Yeah. You know, the only other thing I'd probably add is need to have an opportunity to mention if the fire is under investigation. So if it's a human cause fire, and then make sure that your in brief documents have that contact for the investigator.
Yeah, Mike in the chat said we've been including ISAP, so definitely any sort of WFDS products and ISAP, if you started kind of working that up, I mean, you don't have to get into the weeds on the WFDS and the in brief, but after the fact, it's nice to hand a signed decision over. The teams really appreciate that, because often, you know, you're handing them, at least the leader's intent might be like a long list of things and it's sort of a canned document. And so they really do want to see that emphasis on that local event that's, you know, the specifics. How about group 13? Did you go for that last question? Any different things on the agenda?
I can go. So one thing we included was, or maybe it was just me, but partners. So interested partners, whether most of my experience have been tribal folks that have been interested in hot button issues that are on the fire. So that might be one to consider.
For sure. I think we're there. James, if you have your
If
next.
anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And yeah, just you guys got it.
Mhm.
Just be prepared for these things. Pay attention to them. Work ahead of time. Be prepared with your templates that you may have on your particular units. Get familiar with them. You'll do great.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Erica. Thanks, Lonnie, for the support role there. Next up, we're moving into scenario 3.2 with the overview and WFDS. So Eric, you got it.